So we are only days away from Assassin's Creed Shadows right now. I cannot wait for this game to be here and for everyone to be playing it and experiencing it together. And although I am really optimistic it's going to be a banger, that doesn't mean I have zero concerns about the game either. Now, 95% of the content that I've made so far has been positive and excited because that's generally the type of content that I make. I'm generally an excitable person, but as I always like to do, we are going to counter that out just a little bit. And today I do want to cover some of the areas of concern that I have about this game, just to kind of take a look at it from a slightly different perspective. Now, before we do get into it, I already know there's going to be a bunch of comments that are, oh, you're just hating on the game for the sake of it. That is not the point of this video, guys. Like I said, I'm beyond excited for this game. I think it's going to be an 8 or 9 out of 10 based on my own playtime back a few months ago up in Sydney. I'm nothing but excited for it. So yeah, this video is not me just hating on the game like a lot of content out there. This is coming from someone who is very, very excited, but that doesn't mean I can't have concerns at the same time. So without wasting any time, let's get stuck right into it. Now, I think the first concern that I have, and this is a concern that I think I kind of have with every game at this point, at least in like the modern day of gaming, this is to do with the performance of the game. Obviously, we've seen a lot over the last probably 5 or so years, but there are a lot of games that are often launching in a really buggy state, or they're just having performance issues, mostly based on the fact that a lot of them look really, really good, but it just means they're very hard for our consoles or our PCs to actually run. And that is something I am definitely concerned about with Assassin's Creed Shadows, because based on my playtime, it looks absolutely phenomenal. I've said it before, it is probably one of the best looking games that I've ever played, but anytime that happens, I always have concerns that it's actually going to be a negative, because even though it looks so good, that means there is a chance it's not going to run very well. Now, I think I'd say for this one, it's more of an uncertainty than a concern. I'm not concerned about it in the fact that Ubisoft and Assassin's Creed games specifically, they do generally run very well. When you look at Valhalla and Mirage, the two most recent games, both of those games looked absolutely gorgeous and they both ran really well. Keep in mind, I had played them on console, not so much PC, so I don't know how they run on PC, but I remember Mirage, that game was on my Xbox and it just played very, very smooth and it looked really, really good. So there's that side of it for me where I'm sort of not concerned about it because they generally do deliver. And obviously with the delays and just the fact that this has actually been in development for a very, very long time, keep in mind that Valhalla was 5 years ago now. So like they've kind of gone from making games very quickly when it comes to Assassin's Creed to now that is a 5-year gap. That's a pretty long gap. And so yeah, that side of it I'm not concerned about, but then there's just that other side of, like I said, it's uncertainty more than concern that, yeah, the game looks so damn good. I'm just slightly concerned that it's gonna run poorly or have some sort of performance issues at launch, which may have even been why they initially delayed it. Now, I really do hope I'm wrong on that, because I think that could be catastrophic for this game. I think we all know how important this launch is for Ubisoft. It could actually define the entire existence of that company, to be honest. So I think they have a lot riding on it, and therefore I'm hoping that they have put the time into making sure it runs really smoothly. I think if this game was like a 10 out of 10 but it launched poorly, I just don't think they come back from that. Whereas we've seen like Cyberpunk, for example, games like that maybe have a little bit more leeway, but Ubisoft just don't have that at the moment. So if it launches poorly, that could be genuinely catastrophic for the game, and we just may never see it come back from that. Now, the next concern that I have, and this is a lot in line with like a lot of Assassin's Creed games and just a lot of Ubisoft games in general, I am still slightly concerned about the open world, and I just hope that it isn't bland like a lot of Ubisoft games are. Now, they've obviously changed a lot when it comes to that like open world design. We've seen stuff, for example, like the scout system, where they're not going to like hold our hands like they have in the past. And that for me is one of the biggest complaints I have about Ubisoft games, is that they are often very handholdy, very checklisty type of games. And for me, as someone who just likes going around and exploring some of my favorite games ever in like Skyrim, Red Dead 2, Elden Ring, they don't really hold your hand unless you actively make them. But even a game like Elden Ring, for example, you almost can't get that game to hold your hand, and that's something I actually loved about it. So that is a slight concern for me still, even though, like I said, they have made some changes that seem very good. For example, viewpoints and stuff, they don't just reveal everything on the map anymore. You still have to actually like go and find things on your own. And so those changes are good changes in my opinion, but that doesn't guarantee it's going to be good, because at the end of the day, it does still come down to the level design. even if they don't hold our hand and it's not so much of a checklisty type of game, if the open world design is just bland and boring, I don't think those things are going to fix that. So that is something I'm still slightly concerned about, and that's not based on anything that I saw. Everything in the world that I had seen did feel engaging and it did feel interesting, but realistically, until Ubisoft can actually prove me wrong that they can make an awesome open world, I'm kind of always going to be a bit concerned about that, just because more often than not, that is kind of how their games are designed. Now, the next concern that I've got is to do with the gameplay side of things, and this is essentially to do with the combat. Now, I've even seen a lot of comments on my own videos and stuff saying that a lot of people are concerned about the repetitive look of the gameplay. And I've got to say that's something that I do agree with. I don't think it felt repetitive from my playtime so far, but after 80 or so hours, who actually knows if I'm still going to love it or not? That may change if it doesn't do enough to actually evolve throughout the game and keep things fresh and exciting, as well as allowing us to actually improve and get better, because that's also part of sort of stopping things feeling repetitive. Probably the main complaint that I have from the playtime that I've had so far is that I did see a lot of the same finishes over and over again. Even in only a 4-hour window, I feel like I was seeing the same finisher constantly, and it felt like there was actually only like 2 to 3 for each character. So obviously a total of, for example, 5 or 6 different finishes. And when you account for how many people you're actually killing in this game, if you kill like 1,000 people over the course of the story and there's only like 2 finishes for each character, that is going to get very, very repetitive. And that's just something I'm a little bit concerned about. Now, I have actually said this in a previous video. This video here, if you guys haven't seen it, I did a Q&A essentially answering a bunch of your questions, and I sort of touched on this in that video too. I think if the gameplay is done well enough, then it being repetitive isn't really an issue. I think repetitive gameplay is only an issue when the game itself actually kind of sucks, if that makes sense. Yet if the gameplay is really, really good, I personally don't care if it's repetitive. As an example, I'm a big fan of a lot of shooters out there. I've been playing, say, Battlefield for like 15 years at this point. And realistically, even though each game is slightly different, the gameplay is the same. You're aiming down your gun and you're shooting people, and it is pretty much the same thing every single time. And yet I've probably sunk definitely at least 10,000 hours into Battlefield. So that's kind of what I mean. I think if it's done properly and if it is fun enough, the repetitive nature of something doesn't matter. It's only an issue if the game sucks. And so that's one area I'm not really concerned, because the gameplay honestly did feel phenomenal, and therefore I don't think it will be repetitive. But again, I don't know that. I can't base that off 4 hours. If I play 80 hours of this game, it may get really boring by the end, and I'm just not sure how I'm going to go if every single kill kind of looks the same as the last one. Now, the final concern that I have for today's video is one that's not even really to do with the game itself. It's more to do with the things surrounding this game, and I'm sure you guys kind of know what I'm getting at here, but obviously there is a lot of drama around this game. There's a lot of people hating on it. I think that kind of goes without saying. And one thing I'm just a bit concerned about is that no matter how good this game might be, it will just be a flop based on people literally hating on it for, in some cases, valid reasons, for sure. I'm not saying there is zero criticism of the game, because I've seen a lot of people saying genuine critiques that are fair enough, and even some of them I agree with. But I will say a lot of the hate I've seen for this game is just stuff that is just absolute nonsense, and it's clearly just being said just for the sake of something to hate on the game for. Assassin's Creed, and especially Ubisoft games, they are an easy target for that crowd who just likes to hate on stuff. And that's something I'm honestly concerned about, that the game might just not sell well. It might not do well at all for Ubisoft, and it might actually affect the future of Assassin's Creed. In terms of the money side of it and how successful the game is, personally, I don't care. I don't care how much money Ubisoft makes. That's not what I'm saying at all. If they make $1 or $100 billion, that does not affect me even the slightest bit. So on that side of it, I don't care. But in terms of the future of Assassin's Creed, I really do care. I don't want this game to be like a real negative impact on the future of Assassin's Creed. And unfortunately, for that to happen, I think the game just needs to launch well. It needs to do good numbers and be widely received as a good game in order for the franchise to not be affected moving forward. Because like I said earlier, Assassin's Creed, and more specifically Ubisoft, they are just not in the best place right now. And there is so much riding on this game that if it does end up being a flop, which personally I don't think it will be, but there is just the chance of that happening. If it is a massive flop, that could genuinely really negatively impact the future of the franchise. So that is just something I am concerned about. Again, like I said, it's not really anything to do with this game. This could be a genuine 10 out of 10 and people would still hate on it. So I don't think it actually affects the game itself, but it is still something I'm concerned about, more so just to do with the future of the franchise in general. But that is it for some of my biggest concerns when it comes to Assassin's Creed Shadows, guys. I'm keen to hear all of your thoughts, so be sure to leave them down in the comment section. And if you guys are new here and you're interested in more Assassin's Creed Shadows content, be sure to hit that subscribe button. There is plenty more on the way. I am lucky enough to say that I'm currently playing, and I will be able to talk about the game in detail once the embargo date drops, pretty much at the launch. And so if you guys want to see more content, be sure to hit that subscribe button, as there is a hell of a lot of content on the way. But with that being said, thank you all very much for watching. You guys have a great day, and we'll catch you all in the next one.